How did you get this on monkey type? I mean, code related practice. I looked and couldn't find the option. Here's how you do it. There's a language option. You can just search for code and then pick your language. All good, all good. Yeah. Hmm. Watching a lecture now.
Okay. As you can see that let us
After studying this chapter, you should be able to define diffie-Hellman key exchange, understand man in the middle, present overview of algammal cryptographic system, understand elliptic curve arithmetic, and an overview of elliptic curve cryptography. Present two techniques for generating pseudorandom numbers using an asymmetric cipher. So this chapter begins. Public key crypto system. Algammal crypto system. Finally, we use the use of public key algorithms for pseudorandom number generation is examined. First published public key algorithm is seminal paper Diffie-Hellman that defined public key cryptography. It is generally referred to as Diffie-Hellman key exchange. A number of commercial products employed this key exchange technique. Hello, Nib. I might try and change this title. Yeah. Yeah, I have it.
You have it?
Yeah. So
Remember, you generate a beautiful one.
yeah, so I do have it.
So but when you have time, if you find it, I'm not sure if you can set up on that program with that. No?
Yeah. What program is that?
You know, you wrote the program. It must be what is the program you based on? I remember
Python. Python.
Python.
Yeah.
I remember you last time you said you based on a kind of AI stuff or something to try.
Only because I used, OpenAI.
Yeah.
To
solve the
generate
problem.
it. Yeah, to solve the problem.
Yeah, OpenAI. I see. Is that possible to set up the same thing on that computer? When I needed, I can use
To
it.
automatically create your own.
Create the full list. Yeah.
Yeah, the full list. So okay, yeah, I can send you the file. And
Yeah,
you can
send
run
the
it.
file, and you can set up in a folder, with your Python program and the OpenAI software to run it. So,
Yeah.
so
You don't even need. You only need Python, Dad. You only
only
need
the Python.
Yes.
Okay, sure. You can set up if you have time, set up and then turn on the computer, show me how to use it.
Okay.
See if I have big numbers, 20.
Yeah, 20.
I can't do it visually because it's too complicated,
Yeah.
too long,
Yeah.
and I can miss maybe tens or dozens
Yeah.
possibilities.
I can show you how.
Okay, sure. Well, I go to toilet first, and then later on you show me.
Okay. Side quest. This is honestly like a proper Leetcode question, but let me think. I could make it a Git repository. Real quick. Full of what though? What are we doing? Some of them terms. Permutations. Possibilities. Possibilities. Okay. Y. E. U. something's off. Something's off. We're looking at that, you know? I'm missing something here. Doesn't matter. It's a recursive definition. Ooh, what happened here? Possibilities. Oh, I suppose I could call it main. Input. Never thought I'd need to use this. I never actually use this. I don't know. I don't know if this works. We'll see. Ew, I don't have Python installed. Just install the latest Python. Although... Thing is, do I need anything else for PyEnv? Yep. Shouldn't take so long.
好，我来看看你能不能帮我找过来，好吗？
Okay.
它就是一个 any number partition into any parts. The number k you can partition into m parts.
Yeah.
我记得好像上次 generate you should look generate a perfect spectrum. All the possibilities. And because I remember I tried manually, take probably half an hour, 1 hour to check if I missed any of them.
Yeah.
That's a small number, but bigger number you probably can't do even.
I think we should be fine.
Okay, yeah. If you can find the program,
I already did, so
Okay.
just yeah.
We've been talking about instant messaging and,
Double ratchet.
messaging apps. How can you start having the same conversations? We've been talking about instant messaging and messaging apps. How can you start having the same conversations you might have over the internet, but when maybe someone's got their phone off, like asynchronously? Right? You might have to wait 6 months before the next message comes. These are things we have to think about. That gives attackers a lot of time to break keys. It gives you a lot of time to forget what the key was, and then a message comes in and you can't read it. We've only covered half the story. Right? We've talked about this pre-key bundles and this initial triple Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which is where we want to asynchronously establish some keys. Right? Now, one option then would be to, just like on the internet, when you're doing online shopping, is to use that key from now on to secure every message. That is not a good idea, because imagine that you have a conversation for 6 months and some nefarious party has recorded all of your messages. Then what happens is you break one of them and you've got all of them, because all the keys are always the same, right? So we don't do that, we update the key. I guess there's a question of how often do you update the key, and Signal and WhatsApp and the Signal protocol are pretty rigid about this. They'll update the key every single message, right? Every single message, when you use an app like this, is a different key. Right? So basically make it as absolutely difficult as possible as an attacker to get any message. You break a message, maybe you read one message, maybe you get a couple if you're lucky, right? Because you're sniffing everything. But most of the time you'll get one and that's all. And of course the keys are not exactly easy to break anyway, right? So it makes it very, very difficult to break. At the core of this is something called a ratchet function. Right? A ratchet function is a function that can sort of turn in one way but not backwards. So think of it like a hash function. You can take an input, go through a hash function, but you can't go backwards. Right? So that's kind of like a ratchet. And the key derivation function that we use here, which is kind of like a hash, is used in this way. It's called a KDF ratchet, or key derivation function ratchet. So let's imagine that we have our root key, or our key. Right? So this is our current key, and we want to encrypt a message. So what we do is we pass it through a key derivation function, which operates in a similar way in this instance to a hash, but they're a defined cryptographic primitive. It has an input that comes in here. This can be a constant. It could be relevant to whatever the application is. And out comes a new key and your current output key, or message key, or temporary key, whatever you want to call it, right? So this is a kind of chain. So this is message 1 that we encrypt using this key. Maybe we want to send another message. So we put this through the KDF again, KDF, not KDE, goes through here. This comes out with another key and another message 2 key, right? And this goes on and on. And this kind of function is absolutely at the core of things like Signal, WhatsApp. The reason it's useful is because it doesn't let us turn backwards. If I break this key as an attacker, I can't reverse this one-way function to get to this key. So I can't find what this message key was, or this message key, or all the ones going back in time. So I can break a key somewhere in a conversation, and I can't read any of the message you wrote previously. That's a good thing. What it doesn't do is provide us with sort of future secrecy. So if I break this key, I can use this KDF to produce this key and this key, and so on and so forth. That's a huge problem. So how do we fix that? Well, what we tend to do is we bring in a Diffie-Hellman ratchet as well. So sometimes what will happen is, when they're having these conversations, is that you will receive Diffie-Hellman parameters from the other party, and you'll use them to manipulate your key derivation function to change this chain. And that will mean that if someone cracked a key, as long as they're not privy to all the Diffie-Hellman parameters, you'll be able to re-establish secrecy from then on, right? So this is very nice. When we combine a KDF chain with this Diffie-Hellman ratchet, we've got this kind of double ratchet, and that's what happens in Signal and in WhatsApp. So let's have a look at how this actually works in practice. I'm going to simplify a bit by drawing these ratchets as sort of actual physical ratchets rather than keys and key pairs and things, right? So we have our 2 classic parties that are having a conversation, Alice and Bob. Now Alice has 3 KDF chains that she's using. One is drawing a ratchet is going to be difficult. So I'm going to draw them as circles with,
That's my job then, right?
Yeah, that's your job, sorry. So Alice has a Diffie-Hellman ratchet here, right, which is sort of, got these one-way things on it that mean it can't turn backwards, right? She has a sending ratchet, send, and a receiving ratchet, receive, right? And Bob has the exact same thing. So he has a Diffie-Hellman ratchet of his own, and he has a sending ratchet, and he has a receiving ratchet. Now, What's going to happen is every time that Alice wants to send a message to Bob, she's going to update this sending ratchet, produce a new output key, and send that to Bob. Right? So let's imagine that happens. Let's say Alice sends a message to Bob. So she ticks this ratchet over, she produces another key in that chain, and an output message key. So let's call this Alice 1. Right? Alice encrypts a message with Alice 1 and sends it over to Bob. Bob ticks over his receiving chain. Luckily, the sending chain of Alice and the receiving chain of Bob started at the same point, so they know what they're doing. Right? He ticks this over 1 and produces that same A1 so that he can decrypt the message and read it. Right? So Alice maybe wants to send another one. So she's going to tick this KDF function again. She's going to produce a new key and A2. Right? She's going to send that to Bob. He's going to tick this receiving function A2. Now Bob wants to send a message, so he's going to tick his, this is going to be Bob 1. Alice gets a message and thinks, well, that means I need to calculate whatever the key was to work out what that message was. So she's going to tick this and going to get B1 like this. And these chains are just going to theoretically grow and grow, right? And Alice's sending chain will be in sync with Bob's receiving chain and vice versa. Bob will send a message and it will be Alice's receiving chain that has the right key. So all that has to happen for this to work is that the sending and receiving chains for both Alice and Bob have to be in sync, and they have to start at the same position, right? But we know that's easy to do because they started using a Diffie-Hellman key exchange. But we haven't got that future secrecy that we wanted, right? These won't heal themselves. If someone breaks A2, right, and knows what this sending key was, they've essentially broken Alice's ratchet, and they can tick along with it and work out all of these messages. So what happens occasionally, or whenever they want, is as part of one of Bob's messages, he will send a new Diffie-Hellman public key. So this will come over here like this. Alice will use it to tick her Diffie-Hellman ratchet, and that will reset these messages, right? And Bob will also do the same thing. He will reset his sending or receiving messages as appropriate. This Diffie-Hellman parameter is used to update the starting positions of these two ratchets, and then they continue with their messages.
Presumably Bob's update the moment he sends the Diffie-Hellman.
That's right. So he will have already done that, so that he can then send B1 using the latest Diffie-Hellman pair. So they can send these every message if they want, or hardly ever. In practice, it's sent every message. Right? So the idea is that we have loads of really interesting cryptographic properties here. First of all, the Diffie-Hellman means that we have a sort of self-healing property, right? If someone breaks one of these intermediate keys, as soon as one of these Diffie-Hellman ratchets ticks over, that gets reset and we lose that ability. Because of these KDF ratchets, if you break one of these keys down here, you can't find out what all the other messages were. This method of producing keys will kind of heal itself, and you can't reverse it. You can't go back down the chain and decrypt historic messages. And it deals nicely with asynchronous data. Alice can send 10 messages to Bob, right, with or without Diffie-Hellman parameters, and as long as they both follow the rules, the exact right amount of keys will be generated, and they will exactly match his receiving keys, right? And they can update their Diffie-Hellman parameters as well whenever they want.
Does the Diffie-Hellman go one way? Is it only ever Bob to Alice?
No, so remember, the Diffie-Hellman is a conversation between two parties. They both have a public key, so every time Alice sends a message, she'll send her part, and every time Bob sends a message, he'll send his part. So essentially you have these sort of halfway Diffie-Hellman exchanges, which is this ratchet. So Alice will send and they'll both update. Bob will send and they'll both update. Alice will send and they'll both update. So keeping these different chains in sync is a little bit of a brain melter, right? But it can be done as long as you follow the rules, and as long as Alice and Bob are doing the exact same thing, you'll find that they know exactly which key handles which message.
And what happens if one of these messages gets missed?
So this is another nice thing about this. So if one of these messages gets missed, then what essentially happens is temporarily these two chains become out of sync. So maybe Bob sends 10 messages to Alice, so this receiving chain is 10 long, but Alice has only received 2 of them so far, right? And then she receives number 9. She's got to be able to work out what key decrypts that message. Well, in the message, Bob will have some information that says, I've already sent 8 messages on this chain. Alice will look at her 2 and go, well, that's not right, so I better wait. Or I can tick 7 more ticks to get to the right key and hold on to these ones in case those messages come in later. Right? So they're both going to have to be a little bit careful about which keys they delete, which keys they keep temporarily until those messages come in. But as soon as you've used a key to decrypt a message, you delete it, right? And they get deleted immediately. And that way, it's very robust to people, capturing a device or something like that.
So I know that if I use one of these apps, Signal or WhatsApp or whatever, you get these little ticks to see if something's delivered or if it's been read. How does that work with?
So if you text me, you can see that I've read it, but I've not bothered responding, right? Yeah, so that's sort of an application layer thing. So what will happen is, this is kind of very low level. Right, we're talking just above the kind of network protocols. You've got this stuff happening and forming the encryption. Within that, the message doesn't have to contain an image or a GIF or a text message. It could contain a read receipt or a proof of delivery or something like this, and this will depend on the actual application and how they manage these messages. It really doesn't make a lot of difference. All that happens is a kind of the wrapper around these messages is going to be these Diffie-Hellman parameters and whichever message it is in these chains.
Do they use this for video as well?
They do, yeah. So the packets that get sent when you're performing end-to-end encryption in things like Signal or WhatsApp, we use the exact same protocol for that. All encryption is done this way, right? Because this is just generating keys, the actual encryption will be done with something like an AEAD cipher. So for example, char or AES, and that will include all the normal symmetric key cryptography stuff that make sure that the message hasn't been tampered with and things like this.
With my video head on, I'm wondering how it all gets chunked up, you see, but maybe that's...
Yeah, that's difficult for me to know without reading the code. But, you know, it's going to be small packets of normal size, just like TLS data over the internet, right? It's not going to be much different than you watching a streaming video over an encrypted internet connection at that point.
What happens if you have more than 2 people involved? Does it work the same?
Not quite, right? It gets a little bit messy.
That's for another video then.
Yes. You've got to train for a long time. And let's not let Steve off the hook. Right, there's Steve over here. High value of 2, high value of 1, whatever that means. The interesting thing about this is we're not a lot of people are communicating over the internet on their phone now, not just SMS. You know, messages like Signal, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, they all have some kind of end-to-end encryption these days. So this is not the same as when you go online to, let's say, an online shop and you immediately have a conversation and set up an encrypted connection. This is much slower than that and much more asynchronous. So there's a lot of difficulties when using instant messaging or, you know, application-based messaging, because we don't know really what's going on between the two parties, right? So I send you a message, theoretically some trustworthy server takes that message and forwards it onto your phone, right? Theoretically, right? How much do we trust the server? I suppose it depends on the app. But in any case, maybe we want to try and use a protocol that means even if we don't trust the server, there's not a lot the server can do, right? And that's what the Signal protocol uses, and by association, WhatsApp and Facebook Instant Messenger and things like this. I'll put my phone down and we'll talk about Alice and Bob again, because we always talk about Alice and Bob, right? So they want to have a conversation via a server between themselves, right? Now the problem is that maybe Bob installed the application. So he installed Signal or WhatsApp or something like this 6 months ago, and he's just waiting patiently for some friend to turn up and install the app as well. Right? I get lots of invites to install various different chat apps. Most of them I turn down because I don't want that many icons on my phone. So what will happen is, Bob will start by installing the app, and completely aside from whoever he wants to talk to later, he's going to send a few things to the server. He's going to send a public key that's his identity, So that's his identity public key for Bob. This is going to be a public key on an elliptic curve, like lots of the ones we've talked about. And it'll have a private component or a private key associated with it that will be kept to himself. He's also going to sign a public key to verify that he's in control of this private key. Right, that's kind of standard in cryptography. And then he's going to produce a list of one-time pre-keys. Remember that what he wants to do is have key exchange conversations between Alice or Charlie or anyone else that comes along, and he wants to do that not knowing when they're going to come along. So he's going to send his parts of the messages ahead of time to the server. So he's going to have, you know, a one-use public key here, and another one, and another one, and he's going to number these or something like this. So this is 1, 2, 3, and number 4. So these are all public keys, of which he has the private keys stashed on his phone, right, or on his application. Now the server's going to do this for anyone that installs the application, right? This will happen between your Signal app and their servers, or your WhatsApp and their servers, and so on. What will happen next is sometime down the line, hopefully Bob's made some friends and they've agreed to talk to him on their phones. So Alice comes along and she wants to set up a communication with Bob. Now, the exact same problems that Bob faced, she faces, right? The first one is that Bob might have his phone switched off, so she can't start up a conversation, right? And she also doesn't know where Bob is, so the server does, right? The server, based on Bob's mobile phone number or IP address or something, will know how to get in contact with him. So she goes to the server and says, I'd like to talk to Bob, can I have a pre-key bundle, right? And this is a set of parameters from Bob that she can use to form a communication. So the server's going to send to Alice Bob's identity key, Bob's signed pre-key, and one, either at random or sequentially, of these, let's say number 3, right, of these one-use keys. Alice is going to be sent 3 different public keys from Bob. Right, Alice is going to generate an identity key of her own for Alice, and she's going to generate an ephemeral key, which is like a one-use session key, which is very common in Diffie-Hellman, for herself there. Right? What are all these going to do? Well, let's get rid of this paper, or just move, or I'll swap it around, shall I? We've got I seem to have changed pens, but let's not worry about that. We've got Bob's identity key. That should identify him. Right? If we know that Bob has the private key, and we know that's Bob, the fact that this key has been used means it must be Bob on the other end of the line. Right? That's a really good thing to know. His signed pre-key for Bob, this stops the server messing about with his pre-keys because he's signed it, and the server can't do that. And a one-use public key for Bob. And what that's going to do is make sure that no one can replay attack Bob by sending this whole conversation again later. Bob is going to delete this when he's seen it for the first time. So when you fetch a pre-key bundle and you use it to talk to someone on one of his apps, they will delete that pre-key so that they can never use it again. And we've got Alice. We've got the identity key from Alice and her ephemeral key. Now, I'm going to use a different pen. We've got 5 different public keys here, right? And we're going to perform 4 Diffie-Hellmans, right? Which is getting a little bit hairy, but you know, bear with me. To remind you, we did a video on Diffie-Hellman, which you might like to watch. But what Diffie-Hellman does is you both send public keys to each other, you exchange them, you use your secrets to calculate a shared secret. So any of these 2 public keys can be combined to create a shared secret. Right? But if you only use 2 of them, you're not getting the whole picture, and you're not, you know, for example, if you only use Bob's identity key and Alice's ephemeral key, you aren't guaranteeing the identity of Alice by verifying this particular identity key here. Every public version has a private one. So there's going to be a little private identity key for Alice, and a little private ephemeral key for Alice, and they get used within the mathematics. And the same on the other side. So there's a little one for Bob, so this is identity key for Bob. Right, I've drawn out too many. And this one is let's say this was number 3, wasn't it? So let's put in number 3 here. Bob's got a whole list of these, right? So he's got a whole list of these, 1, 2, 3, and this is the one he's going to use. Alice is going to perform a Diffie-Hellman key exchange 4 times, right? So she's going to do this one here, she's going to do this one here, she's going to do this one here, that's number 3, and she's going to do this one here, number 4. Right? So she's bringing all the keys into play. Then she's going to produce one master key, shall we say, with all of these pre-master secrets. So she's going to take 1, she's going to append it to 2, she's going to append it to 3, append it to 4. She's going to put that through something called a key derivation function, which for the sake of simplicity we'll just say is very similar to a hash function. And that's going to produce her master secret. She can then use that to encrypt things, and theoretically when she sends a message to Bob, Bob will be able to do the same thing, and no one else will. Right? So she'll send a message including something encrypted, her identity key and her ephemeral key, Bob will do the exact same procedure, and then he will be able to send her a message back. The way that this signal protocol works with Alice and Bob and the server in between is called triple Diffie-Hellman. Why are we doing all these different Diffie-Hellmans, right? In our previous video, we just had a public key for Alice and a public key for Bob. We seem to be wasting a lot of time. Well, each of these different Diffie-Hellman exchanges gives us something different. But the really important ones that I want to talk about are the ones involving these identity keys here. The identity keys prove who you are. But of course, if I'm Alice and you're Bob and I send you an identity key for myself, it doesn't prove who I am at all. It's just a number. It doesn't say anything, right? So how do you actually know that the message came from me? Right? And the answer is that actually what you need to do is look at this number offline, out of band. You need to go outside of the normal line of communication over the internet and face-to-face look at this number. And if you see that it's right, then you know that it must have been me having this conversation. Okay, so I can send you a message using Signal, right? You've installed Signal. You're Bob, I'm Alice in this case, right? So you've already sent your pre-keys to the server, just waiting to go. My phone will send a message to the server and say, can I get a pre-key bundle? And then we'll perform an exchange, right? Something like that. So I'm going to send you a message. It's not going to be interesting. Hello. Right, so I send you a message. Hopefully it pops up on your phone. It does. There we go. I mean, this is good evidence that it was me, right? I literally sent the message and it appeared on your phone. But that doesn't always happen in instant messaging. So sometimes I'm not around or you're not around at the time. So how did you know when it pops up my name on here, but it is me? And the answer is you don't, right? Someone could have, the server or someone else could have intercepted these messages and performed a man-in-the-middle attack, right? The only way we can verify it is to check out each other's public keys, right? Our identity keys. So the way that Signal does this is it takes the identity public key of Alice and the identity public key of Bob, and it combines them using a hash function into a safety number, right? That safety number is essentially a summary of our two public identity keys, right? If we have the same safety number, that means we're having a conversation with the same two identity keys, which means it must be a conversation just between us two. That's the idea. So let's have a look. I'm going to go into my safety number, and they're the same. And in Signal, actually, you can press this little verified button which says we've looked at these out of band. This is called an out of band communication because we're not using the normal encryption to verify our keys. Right? So now, actually, when we send messages, it will show as verified. So in WhatsApp, it's not called a safety number, it's just called a security code. But you can see it is absolutely the same. Now, of course, most people don't do this, right? Most people send messages and assume there isn't a man in the middle. And in all likelihood, there probably isn't. Right? But if you want to be really sure, maybe have a look at your safety number. We've only covered half the story. Right? We've talked about this pre-key bundles and this initial triple Diffie-Hellman. I mean, we all have phones. We talked about that.
It's real good. It's real good. ChatGPT jailbreak. Okay. Signal's epic, I won't lie. Signal is epic. Alright. Cool. Okay. I need to make sure I understand these concepts. 1 sec, just gotta double check something. Gotta find a way to refresh the cameras. No. How do I even refresh the cameras, man? I'm just gonna try something. No. Okay. I'll be right back. Let's see. Oof. Don't know how well this is. I mean, got it's a little too high. Just a little bit down. It's fine. A little bit further. Yeah. All right. Okay, and we change the display back. I will. Okay. Ooh, a primitive root is one whose powers modulo p generate all the integers from 1 to p minus 1. That is, if a is a primitive root of the prime number p, then are distinct and consist of the integers from 1 through to p minus 1 in some permutation. For any for any integer b and a primitive root a of the prime number p, we can find a unique exponent I such that, obviously, yeah. Okay, so the exponent I is referred to as the discrete logarithm of b for the base a and mod p. We express this value as d log apb d log apb Okay, yeah. Mad. Right. So the algorithm consists of, summarizes Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm. For this scheme, there are two publicly known numbers, a prime number q and an integer a, alpha, such that a primitive root of that is a primitive root of q. Yeah, suppose users A and B wish to create a shared key. User A selects a random integer and computes y equals alpha x a mod q. Similarly, user B independently selects a random integer and computes this. Each side keeps x value private and makes y value available to the other side. Thus, A and y user A computes the key as k equal this, and user B computes it as this. These two calculations produce identical results. Okay, so Alice and Bob share a prime number q and an integer alpha, such that alpha is less than q and alpha is a primitive root of q. Alice generates a private key xa such that xa is less than q. Bob generates a private key xb such that xb is less than q. Alice calculates a public key ya, which is equal to alpha xa mod q. Now, because it's a primitive root, it's still going to be within q, and Bob does the same thing. And these y's get sent to each other, and Alice receives Bob's public key, Bob receives Alice's public key, and Alice calculates a shared secret key, k, which is equal to yb xa mod q, and Bob calculates shared secret key just like that. Okay. same thing. Okay, so by the rules of modular arithmetic, so expanded out from YB is alpha of XB. Yeah, I agree. Mod P XA mod Q. Now, the mods get moved out together, and then you have XB and XA, which is equal to XA and XB. And so that's your key. That's makes sense. With that said, okay. A quantum secure crypto. OMG, don't use cryptography that relies on discrete logarithm assumption. There's already a lot. Do you see this? Yes, I do. Okay, so I mean, even still, I gotta learn about the theory, you know what I mean? Still makes sense. I've looked at Signal's protocol, right? What do you mean? What part is obsolete? What is obsolete? Quantum, oh right, sure. Quantum security. We don't have quantum security with RSA crypto. No, we don't. But I have to learn it still. Can't help it. Why do I have to learn it? It is for a subject, but also it's better to know it now because it's still, I think, the thing that's used, perhaps. USA law, USA government law requires government cryptography to be upgraded by 2030. Okay. I didn't know that. Fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway. Back to learning about discrete logarithms. I mean, you are quite into the crypto after all, quantum secure crypto. You would probably know more than I do. The security of the Diffie-Hellman key exchange lies in the fact that while it is relatively easy to calculate exponential modulos of prime, it is very difficult to calculate discrete logarithms. For large primes, the latter task is considered infeasible. Here is an example. Key exchange is based on the use of the prime number q, which is equal to 353, and a primitive root of 353. In this case, alpha is equal to 3, and A, B select private keys respectively. Each computes a public key. Alright, so Hmm. Yeah, fair enough. After the exchange, each can compute the secret key. We assume an attacker would have available the following information: Q alpha YA equal 40, YB equals 248. In this simple example, it would be possible by brute force to determine the secret key is equal to 160. In particular, an attacker E can determine the common key by discovering a solution to the equation equal to 40 or the equation equal to 248. The brute force approach is to calculate the powers of 3 mod this, stopping them, and result equals to 40 or 248. Do I agree? The desired answer is reached with the exponent value of 97, which provides this equal to 40. With large numbers, the problem becomes impractical. Okay. Key exchange protocols. So figure 10.1 shows a simple protocol that makes use of the Diffie-Hellman calculation. Right, yes. Suppose that user A wishes to set up a connection with user B and you use a secret key to encrypt messages on the connection. User A can generate a one-time private key XA, calculate YA, and send that to user B. User B responds by generating a private key XB, calculating YB, and sending YB to user A. Both users can now calculate the key. The necessary public key Q and alpha would need to be known ahead of time. Alternatively, so alpha in this case is a discrete base A. Eh. I will turn on the lights. Let me backtrack and see where this alpha comes from. Alpha is a primitive root of Q. Primitive root. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta remember some of these terms at least, you know? So, what I'll do is Diffie-Hellman. We're just gonna write some stuff here. So, primitive root. And the I guess it's a large prime. David, why don't you work on secure crypto? I can't, man. I'm just learning what we currently have. Say like in the Signal app that we're using. That's I just need to know the basics. Right? I just need to know the basics. Oh wait. Yo, there's actually a lot of chat. Sorry, I did miss a lot of it. Yo, long time no see. Latest version. Okay. This is vaporware. Where can we be serious here? Why don't you just use ROT13 for your encryption scheme? Are you studying broken encryption schemes? Yeah. Mubba cool. Okay. OpenSSH 9.9 has a quantum secure KEM key exchange. Well, I'm learning Diffie-Hellman. Why stream on YouTube, Lamau? Twitch is better for devs. I would argue not. I've tried Twitch. Although, like, I dual stream sometimes. David, do you understand the discrete log assumption? I don't think I can explain it to you yet. So no. If I were to just before looking, I mean, I know one assumption is related to brute force, if that's the same thing. I'm not confident in that answer. Okay. It's really the foundation of everything you're understanding, in my opinion. Okay. I'll take that. Will do. Quantum secure crypto. You know, because I think we touched on it in class, perhaps. I mean, several important algorithms in public key cryptography, such as algaml, base their security on hardness assumption that the discrete logarithm problem over carefully chosen groups has no efficient solution. If that's the assumption that you're talking about, then I think I get what you mean. The hardness assumption being that it's computationally difficult to find the power of the primitive root. That breaks the public key, that breaks the private keys. Oh, well, that breaks the secret key given the public keys. I know I strung along that very very shattered, but I'll have to go through it a couple more times. Yeah, please explain it to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So imagine you have a 256-bit number that is public. Okay, I raise it to a secret 256-bit number and give you an answer modulo 2 to the power of 256. So by raising it to a power, it would wrap around many, many times due to the modulo arithmetic. Sure. Okay, let me read over that a couple more times. A 256-bit number, firstly, is just a number that is zeros and ones, 256. That string of bits is public. I raise it to a secret 256-bit number and give you the answer. You lost me at mod 256. All right, let me read the rest of it that you have here as well. 256-bit computer unsigned integer. Wait, give me a second. I'm just about to have dinner also, but let me try and understand what you're saying. All right, so imagine you have a 256-bit. Okay, so the assumption is that it's computationally hard for you to guess my secret power that I raised the number 2. So to be clear, I mean a 256-bit computer unsigned integer. So by raising it to a power, it will wrap around many, many times due to a modulo arithmetic. So the mod 2 to the power of 256. Why 2 to the power of 256? I think that's my confusion with this. I kind of can get what you mean with the last 3 messages you sent, but modulo 2 to the power of 256. I know that 2 to the power of 256 is possibly like the whole space of numbers that are possible for the key. Okay, so how familiar are you with modular arithmetic? I think I'm pretty familiar. I've done some already. So speak to me like I know modular arithmetic. Modular arithmetic is just like clock arithmetic. It's 11 o'clock and you add 3, it becomes 2. Yeah, no, I know that much. Yeah, that's all good. I mean, yes, that's right. I'm good with all that. But what confuses me is the 2 to the power of 256. Okay, yeah, right. So, yeah, practically we'd have to constrain data types, correct? I agree. So 2 to the power of 256. You're still, okay, so I'm guessing that's still just the search space then. Oh, not the search space. Well, yeah, the search space of the potential key, perhaps. So we have to use modular arithmetic because the 256-bit number raised to the 256-bit number would be really large. So we take the modulo of the number, so it wraps around many times. Yeah, I agree with that. but why modulo 2 to the power of 256? Is my question. You're right, that makes the search space pretty big. If we use a 256-bit while, say, a 32-bit would be easy to brute force solve. Yep, I agree. You could do a 128-bit, still pretty hard. Yep, I would say I agree as well. Isn't there also something about RSA? RSA right now has to be at a minimum of 2048 bits to be secure. I don't know the exact specifics, but that's what I've heard. And same thing with, you can go another power up to 4096 RSA. I'm guessing that's 4096 bits RSA. And that would be even more difficult to brute force. But I'm guessing, the other question is, if you have these RSAs increasing forever, or for like a huge number, RSA, I don't know, 10 million, is that better? So RSA is actually more quantum secure than elliptic curve cryptography. Okay. I was under the okay, so elliptic curve cryptography is fuzzy to me. I've heard of it, heard the term being used. It's moot in 5 years with post-quantum anyway. Sure. Okay. So if we have like RSA 10 million, is that going to be quantum secure? I'm guessing there's probably efficiency concerns when it gets to a really large bit. Yes and no. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, regardless, anyway, I think I'm gonna call it a night. It's a good chat anyway, good to talk about this stuff. Maybe I'll see you next stream. I'll be learning cryptography again, likely tomorrow. Hey, but thanks, man. Thanks for staying along and just speaking to me. Yeah, thank you. All right, catch you later.